Good evening. Call the meeting to order. October 26, 2023 meeting of the Planning Board. We have...
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Before we get started, I have an issue on the agenda I'd like to raise. If that's okay.
What do you got?
I noticed on today's agenda for the 26th, the item 6 that was on the 19th was cut off. And item 6 is other business. Chairman updates, planning board rules, board discussions, things like that.
I think that was a typo. That's a part of every agenda, so we'll consider it a part of tonight's agenda.
All right,
Yeah,
so,
there should be added back.
so that is part of tonight's agenda?
It's a part of every meeting. I should have noticed that. Thank you for pointing it out.
Okay, great, thanks.
So we have determinations of completeness. The first one is request of Bantry Bay Associates LLC, owner for property at 0 Shearwater Drive, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval for subdivision of the 2.23 acre lot into 9 conforming single-family lots. This property is on Assessor's Map 217, Lot 2-1844, and lies within the GRB district. And we also have site plan review for the same Bantry Bay Associates for the same property. Again, 9 single-family dwellings, associated paving, stormwater management, lighting, utilities, and landscaping. Again, Assessor's Map 217, Lot 2-1844, in the General Residence B District. We have a motion to accept those as complete.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Accepted. First public hearing, we have the request of Eric and Amanda Beetleman as owners for property at 810 McGee Drive, requesting a wetland conditional use permit from section 10.1017 for the removal of an existing 508 square foot rear deck within the 100-foot wetland buffer and associated framing and stairs. The applicant is proposing to replace the rear deck with a smaller deck of approximately 319 square feet and a 60 square foot landing. This property is on Assessor's Map 219, Lot 45-5, and lies within the Single Residence or SRB district. Who is here to present this application? Please give your name and address for the record.
Eric Beitelman, 810 McGee Drive.
And Lynette Rogers with Homescapes New England, who's doing the deck.
Okay, thank you.
We just request that we would be able to produce the deck as drawn and as submitted. I said basically it's not taking up any more square footage of the area. We had gone through conservation to make sure. They did a site visit as well and have recommended this to the planning board to be approved. We have also listed as requested the little logos that go out for wetland conservation area. It has been already put on the trees. The homeowner has already done that. So that was also requested to put crushed stone, so 3/4 inch crushed stone underneath the deck. That has been approved by the homeowner to do as well as part of the project. So that will also be done, as well as a silt fence, which was not requested, but we did it anyway, as also addition protection for the wetland. Any questions for us?
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant? No questions? Okay, thank you very much. I'll open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Anybody wish to speak to, for, or against this application, either present or on Zoom? Anybody on Zoom?
If you're on Zoom and would like to speak, please raise your hand.
Nobody?
No, nobody.
Last call. Anybody wish to speak to, for, or against this application? Nobody on Zoom still? I'm going to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we vote to find that the conditional use permit application meets the criteria set forth in section 10.1017.60 and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Findings adopted.
And I will make a motion that we vote to grant the wetland conditional use permit with the following conditions, 2.1 and 2.2 as outlined in the staff memorandum.
Second. Any discussion?
I think this is a pretty straightforward application. They're actually going from a bigger deck to a smaller deck, so I think it makes sense given the constraints of the property.
Makes sense. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You are approved. Thank you very much. Is Neil? We have two public hearings. I suppose we could have a motion to combine these. We have Crest of Bantry Bay Associates LLC as owner for property at 0 Shearwater Drive, requesting site plan review approval for construction of 9 single-family dwellings and associated paving, stormwater management, lighting, utilities, and landscaping. This property is located in Assessor's Map 217, Lot 2-1844, and lies within the General Residence or GRB district. We also have a request for preliminary and final subdivision approval for the subdivision of the existing 2.23 acre lot into 9 conforming single-family lots. Same parcel on Assessor's Map 217, Lot 2-1844 in the GRB district.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that they be considered together.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So let's consider them together and vote on them separately. Who is here to present this application?
Hi, good evening. Neil Hansen with Tyne Bond. So as just read into the record, we're here to request subdivision and site review approvals for an existing lot along Shearwater Drive. So the existing lot is currently a 2.23 acre lot that formerly has 5 duplexes, a single 4-unit building, and a single 6-unit building that were located on that lot. Those buildings had a variety of driveways and parking areas as well off of Shearwater. The proposed project is to subdivide that single 2.23 acre lot into 9 single-family residential lots. All of the proposed 9 lots conform with all required zoning regulations, so we don't need any relief for any of the lots. On the subdivision application, we are also requesting a waiver from section 9.2 requiring a maintenance bond for maintenance of roadways, as we're not proposing to build a new roadway as part of this project. That section is not really applicable to this project. Here, if you could go a couple pages ahead. So the buildings that were previously located on this piece of land were previously demoed, and there's currently a fence around the site as the foundations are still there, as well as the driveways and parking areas. So the site plan shown here is, again, to construct 9 single-family homes. This site plan has a table at the top middle there that has a list of a variety of different house types that could all potentially be on these lots. Those spec sheets for those houses were also included in the package. Basically, the idea would be after this gets subdivided, the lots will be sold individually, and whoever purchases those lots will have the ability to choose from that list of homes. There are certain homes that don't fit on certain lots, and we've already looked at that. So the idea would be whatever footprint was selected will meet all of the zoning requirements. On the site plan side, we're also going to be mill and overlaying the entire length of Shearwater Drive along the frontage, as well as constructing or reconstructing the sidewalk that is currently there with a new concrete sidewalk. The sidewalk will follow the alignment of the existing sidewalk. There had been some discussion in TAC about moving that sidewalk off the curb line, so there was a grass strip between the curb and the sidewalk. We've done that here where we can, but there were certain areas where we left it along the curb line in order to not have to cut down some of the mature street trees that currently exist on the back side of the sidewalk. So the sidewalk generally follows the alignment that is currently there today. If you could go to the next sheet. So on the grading plan, generally we're just regrading the site to match existing grades. This proposed plan does reduce the total impervious surface on the lot And to determine that, we selected the largest footprint that would fit on each lot to make that calculation. So the worst-case scenario is a reduction. The calculation is actually in the upper left-hand corner of this page. So the worst-case scenario is a reduction of about 500 square feet of impervious surface. Depending on which houses go on which lots, it could be slightly lower than that. As part of this, we are replacing some existing drainage pipes in Shearwater Drive that were identified by DPW that were in need of replacement. So we will be replacing the pipe that crosses Blue Heron Drive, and then also the run that goes across Shearwater in that same location with new HDP pipes. Additionally, there are a number of pipes that currently connect from this lot through to Market Street. Between Market Street and this lot, there's a rather large berm. I think it's about 10 feet high from the Market Street side, and then from the Shearwater side, it's about 4 to 6 feet tall. Heavily vegetated. It's a great screen between Shearwater Drive, these lots, and Market Street. Blocks traffic noise, and again, obviously mature landscaping. So when going through TAC, they had initially asked us to replace those pipes. Obviously, we'd like to maintain that berm in place. So the solution that was agreed to is that the pipes that we need to remain in place, we will slip line those pipes in order to reinforce them. They're old corrugated metal pipes, which are probably at their design life. So slip lining them will reinforce them and extend that life of those without having to dig them up and cut through that landscaped berm area. There's also a couple of other ones that we no longer will need, so those will be cut and capped and abandoned in place. So that way we'll be able to maintain that really nice screen that's between these lots and Market Street. Each house, there's some yard drains in the back to pick up the drainage from the rear yard areas, and those will tie into that existing drainage system as well in the rear of the site. If you go to the next sheet, utilities pretty straightforward. There'll be new service connections for each of these lots. In the Shearwater Drive on the right side of this plan, so the eastern sort of half, 4 or 5 lots, we will be replacing the existing sewer main that's in Shearwater Drive. It's an existing clay pipe, and we'll be replacing that with a PVC along our frontage. So that is, and then I guess one last thing to touch on the landscaping is generally the plan for landscaping is, one, protect and preserve the mature street trees where we can. There are a few that need to come down based on driveway locations, so we will be replacing those street trees that we're removing with new trees along the street. And then the 2 lots on the right, we will be, we're proposing to put a couple of trees in the backyards there. We have to do some clearing for grading purposes in the rear there. The rest of the landscaping is basically we're leaving a blank canvas for whoever the future owners of these lots are to landscape their property as they see fit. So that's why the landscape plan's a little sparse, other than replacing street trees and then a couple trees in the rear of those 2 right lots. That's about it. Take any questions.
Questions for the applicant? Yes, Jim.
Yes, Mr. Hanson. Excuse me. I noticed there's 9 units here, and our parking rules require 12 spaces, and you're providing 36, which is 3 times more than's required. Can you go into why you're providing so much parking?
I mean, really, we're providing there's a garage and a driveway. So basically the calculation is it's I believe 2-car garage, and then the width of the driveway, you can fit 2 cars in the driveway.
Okay.
So it's just 4, you can fit 4 cars on each lot, but it's just the nature of needing a driveway that you can get 2 cars to.
Because it's been intimated to us that parking is a real driver of making homes expensive, and that complying with, say, what you're providing here makes these incredibly expensive. Do you find that to be the case?
I think in my experience, that would be more in the multifamily development world, where you're talking about a 150 unit apartment building. realistically, even if we're not going to, the parking count is strictly based on a driveway that we need to build anyway and having a 2-car garage. We didn't do anything special to get to that number, other than putting it in a driveway. So I think for a single-family development like this, I'm not sure that it's a apples-to-apples comparison, but certainly in the multifamily development world, adding excess parking adds cost to a project.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions of the applicant? Yes, Joe.
Is there any, did you touch upon, is there significant site lighting or sidewalk lighting proposed?
We're not proposing any new street lighting, and then anything that goes on the house would probably be nothing more than either a lamp post or a wall sconces next to the front door.
Thank you.
Yes, Peter.
Are the properties that are there now occupied at all?
Nope, all the buildings have been torn down.
Sorry.
Yep.
And when you're doing some of the tree changes, is it really a row of trees, like one tree thick, or is there more
Well,
thickness to the trees?
Along the street, it's pretty much just street trees, so a single row of trees. The ones that we need to take down are on the sort of the right side of this plan, and that's where there's an existing parking area there, so the driveways don't really line up with where we need the new driveways. I also think, I haven't been down there in a while, but if I recall, the street trees on that end aren't in that great of shape to begin with. I think they're just like old pine.
And is there any concern for noise volume from the roadway?
That's the main reason why we didn't want to cut into that berm, because if we did, we could obviously rebuild it, but then you lose all the vegetation that's on top of it. So from the side of these houses, there's about a 5-foot hill behind, with pretty tall trees, pretty thickly vegetated too along the top of that. So that's about all you're going to get. I live right along this road, right down the street, and guys with modified exhaust, you hear them, but for 95% of the time, it's not bad.
Thank you.
Yes, Corey.
Quick question. Did TAC raise any concerns about having the sump pumps of each residence tied into the drainage system proposed?
They didn't.
They did not. Okay. Thank you.
Andrew.
There was recently a development off of Cut Street that Chinburg had done. That was 4 homes in a small cul-de-sac, and it abutted Market Street as well. I believe they did a fence of some variety, and I think there was some public access, so that could have changed the consideration. But was there a consideration to do a fence as well as some tree planting?
There wasn't that I'm aware of, at least presented towards me. And again, I think the main reason for that is we already have this rather large berm separating. And I mean, a homeowner, when they buy one of these, could put up a fence behind their section of property. But I think that berm is pretty substantial and heavily vegetated. So
Okay.
I don't know how much extra you're going to get from a fence.
Any other questions? I have to interrupt. I made a mistake. I was interrupted at the beginning, threw my thinking off. Mr. Simonis had asked you to sit for Ms. Magala, who's not here this evening, and Mr. Bowen for Councilor Moreau. So because I didn't do that, could we have a motion to reaffirm everything that we've done so far?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So if no other questions to the applicant, proceed to the public hearing on this. Open the public hearing. Is there anybody here or on Zoom who wishes to speak to, for, or against this application?
No hands have been raised.
I guess that wasn't a person in the back. Last call. Anybody wish to speak to, for, or against this application? I'm going to close the public hearing. You're on a roll, Corey.
Sure. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we vote to grant the requested waivers to the subdivision standards from section 9.2, maintenance bonds, and selecting option A, strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Second.
Discussion?
I think all their improvements retaining to public infrastructure, the sidewalk in particular, is already within the city right away.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll make a motion that we vote to find that the subdivision application meets the standards and requirements set forth in the subdivision rules and regulations to adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion, we vote to grant preliminary and final subdivision approval of the following stipulations 2.1 through 2.3 as outlined in the staff memorandum.
Second?
Any discussion?
Appears to be a pretty straightforward, I mean, it's kind of unique that when you look at it from what was there to what they're proposing, it's similar in a lot of ways. So it is a little unique, but it seems to fit very well with the context of the neighborhood. So, yes, these homes will be right up against Market Street, but there were already pre-existing homes there as well, so.
Makes sense. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that was for, which I forget?
That was for subdivision.
Subdivision, okay.
Yep. So for site plan approval, I'll make a motion, we vote to find that the site plan application meets the requirements set forth in the site plan regulations, section 2.9, evaluation criteria, and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adopted.
And make a motion to vote to grant site plan approval with the following conditions 2.1 through 2.6 as outlined in the staff memorandum.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You are approved. Thank you very much. A request of Richard P. Fazigny as owner for property at 201 Kearsarge Way, requesting amended subdivision approval for revisions to the grading and drainage design. This property is located on Assessor's Map 218, Lot 5, and lies in the Single Residence B or SRB district. Who is here to present for this application?
Hi, thank you, Chairman. Joe Coronati with Jones and Beach Engineers. With me, I have my clients, Jenna and Michael Green. They have the, Green and Company has the property under agreement, and in the process of reviewing the design that was approved, this plan was actually approved twice. It was approved in 2020 and as well as 2022. They started looking at the design of the site. It was a 3-lot subdivision. And it had a fairly substantial amount of infrastructure required for the drainage and the grading of the site. There's on the originally approved plans, there's a large retaining wall along the back of the houses, and then prior to that retaining wall, there was some underground storm tech drainage systems for roof water, which are very common in commercial developments, not the most common in house lot development with residential owners having to maintain these, as well as just a large retaining wall that crossed over property lines would have involved neighbors if there was ever issues down the road. So they, Green and Company asked us to take a look at the drainage, see what we could do to simplify it, still keep the layout. There's no changes to the layout of the lot lines or any of those approvals that this board granted. But we did make one significant change in that we eliminated the retaining wall behind the homes, and we added a rain garden in in between two of the rear lots here. The rain garden's just a grassed area. We also, it's a grass depression. We also dug test pits on the property to verify the soils. We took, we have a device called an amusimeter, which measures soil permeability. We brought that out. We did permeability tests on the soils to determine if we could infiltrate. And the soils in the rear of the lot are actually pretty decent. We have, and so we did a drainage report with the results from the amusimeter and the test pits and the soils that we found on site, and designed a rain garden that satisfies the requirement that we have no off-site runoff or a reduced amount of runoff, and really simplifies the design. There's no more retaining wall, there's no more below-grade stormwater systems that have to be maintained by these residential owners. And those are really the only changes we made to the plan. And it's so this would be an amended subdivision plan. And I think it's an improvement just to simplify a residential neighborhood area for the stormwater that they will have to maintain, but it's not going to be nearly as difficult as a below-grade storm tech system with overflows. And that's all
Any questions for the applicant?
So you state that, I just trying to get my head wrapped around this a little bit. So you're stating that there's obviously maintenance that has to occur as part of this, and the rain guard is split between two properties. You have the overflow on one property, the emergency spillway is split between two properties, but yet we're removing the condition for having a maintenance agreement between the properties?
I think there'll still be the requirement for a maintenance agreement. It'll be a much less involved maintenance agreement. A rain garden does have maintenance. It's very minor. It's basically mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
Making sure it's draining. If there's ever a situation where it's not infiltrating and operating properly, then they'd have to get together and do something. But it's much simpler than repairing a retaining wall that's going across lot lines. If you ever have an abutter that doesn't want to maintain that wall, there's really a lot less maintenance with a rain garden than you may believe, than any other device, really.
Yeah, as part of the request, I just want to make sure we're not getting rid of that, the maintenance document that's going to be required.
We actually submitted a revised maintenance document in our drainage, and I think that would take the place of the
Okay.
the prior approved one.
Okay.
There are 3 maintenance notes on the plan under maintenance requirements. They're pretty minor, but pretty much as he stated.
Yeah, just on the 2.5.1-A, maintenance responsibilities for the storm tech systems, which is going away, and being replaced by the rain garden. By the homeowner shall be addressed through a maintenance document that outlines the requirements to keep the system functional at all times. That document shall be recorded as part of the conservation easement deed. So I just didn't know if the best way to do this is to basically just take out storm tech and replace it with rain garden. So that way it still runs with the deed, still part of the requirement, but that way, just as the property transfers hands down the future and stuff, it doesn't become an issue. I certainly understand it's much less
Right.
work to keep this up and running than it was the previous system.
Will the rain garden be the responsibility of all 3 lot owners, or just the 2 that it's on?
Just the 2 that it's on. It would basically be a mini homeowners association between the 2 of them. To just what 2.5.1A says, but like you said, sir, minus the storm tech, add the rain garden, and then it would just be an agreement between those two homeowners.
So are you proposing that change?
Yes.
Does that work for you, Corey?
That's fine. So, yeah, we'll have to kind of rearrange a little bit on the condition side of things. But, yeah, I think that works for me.
Yes, Greg?
To Corey's point, and it wasn't really clear, so that'll be reflected, I get there's a conservation easement, but will the conservation easement also reflect on the deeds of the two individuals involved, that they're jointly committed to maintaining that thing financially?
Well, they're going to need cross easements for sure. And
Exactly. I mean, he used the term mini HOA, and that's accurate, but an HOA requires HOA documents, which we don't have.
Would be, that could all be part of it.
No, it's
Yeah,
too early in the game.
The conservation area could include, would include, or I would suggest it includes the maintenance of the drainage in that document as well. So it's all in one document would be, I
And the
think,
conservation easement is granted by both property owners, so that'll run with their deed, so that ties that up, is that correct?
yes.
Sorry, I'm not a lawyer.
had you contemplated doing a revised subdivision plan?
We, as far as the layout of the lot lines,
I know you're not changing the lot lines. The reason I ask is you could put a note on a subdivision plan, showing the easement. Yes,
I guess, has the conservation area already been, has that easement already occurred and running with the land currently?
it hasn't,
Okay, so that is still a proposed item.
right,
Okay.
the plans were approved and have not been recorded.
Okay.
So there's, so basically the plans would be recorded and we could add things like easements or notes, whatever the board, wants us to add to it.
So the former retaining wall, is that what you've got ghosted behind those two buildings?
Yes, I wanted to give you kind of a context of where it was, and none of the proposed buildings are into that conservation area. We've maintained that line with the structures, so that area will all be still vegetated.
Yeah, I remember the prior thinking being that it was to keep everything out. And that's why there was the retaining wall and the storm tech and everything else. But
I think it all makes sense. I think it's a great plan. I was just looking for housekeeping so
Yeah,
that the two
that's-
people don't have Hatfields and McCoys over, what do we got to do with this pond?
that's how I feel too.
That's all I was pointing out. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, Corey, you've got the spillway on both, you've got the overflow on one. Just seems like it's not complicated, and I appreciate what you've done to simplify things. It's just trying to avoid problems in the future. Yes.
Exactly.
It appears almost that if you look at the 2022 conditions, condition 1-1, that if just keeping that in place might satisfy. Drainage easements shall be provided across lots. Well, I don't know if we need to have lot 1 involved, but lots 3 for lot 2 and lot 1 drainage, and across lots 2 for lot 1 drainage. Maintenance responsibilities for the storm, no longer storm tech, but
Rain garden.
rain garden shall be included in the easement language or otherwise address through a maintenance agreement. So it's almost like we can take both that and possibly 2.5-.1-A and kind of make them work if the applicant.
Yeah, and Lot 1 is involved because its water does go to the rain garden ultimately, right?
It actually doesn't.
It doesn't?
It drains to the rear and kind of around the back of the rain garden. So it's not, there is a ditch line along
On the
property line. So if you wanted to include that. I don't think that would be a problem. Obviously, the structure is not on their lot, but half of their, a portion of their house would drain to the rear.
Yeah, it might just make sense to keep it in there, I think.
For future possible improvements on that lot, have you sized the rain garden based on the footprints you've shown, or have you sized it a little bit bigger, or?
Correct. We increased the footprints to those red outlined footprints, and then we sized the rain garden based on those footprints. To be more typical of what Green and Company builds for houses.
So future improvements like an additional detached garage or accessory dwelling unit or something like that would not be allowed with this drainage design?
I think it'd have to be revisited if it was, but there's also not a lot of room for some of those structures. We do have a provision in the conservation area does allow for the construction of a shed if needed, but I think that's a fairly minor sized item that would end up in the back. It's always tricky with expansions of buildings. I mean, if they're revisited by drainage or not, but
So since the prior plan subdivision plan hasn't been recorded, you are comfortable just putting some notes on it for a new subdivision plan to be recorded, reflecting the drainage easement?
I think
Is
that's
that,
okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's up to the board. If it,
At some point, we'll have to pull together our plans and make one set for the city to, sign and record and keep on record between the two engineers.
well, will you be doing it, or will somebody else be doing it? Do you know?
I think it would end up, Ambit Engineering did all the survey work, all the layout of the lots, and I think it would end up being on their plan for the easements, and then, and our plans may be assimilated into the set for the stormwater portion, is how I'm kind of picturing it. And then we'd end up with one set with both of us in it, but
Why don't you help us out and make a proposal for what you'd like to do and see if it works? Because, I can come up with ideas, and I think we can, but if you have you've got some pretty sophisticated clients, so if the proposal is for you to finish the drainage, which you've pretty much done, and for Ambit to do a revised subdivision plan reflecting these notes, maybe we should know that. If you
Yeah, I
want to
think
check
that's-
with them. I feel better if we have the plan to look at, but.
Approval conditioned on the new plan being submitted.
Yeah.
Couldn't you make it limited common area?
Yeah, but, in talking, I think it's simplest to go with a two-prong approach where both of us would be involved in the final plans. And obviously, if that changes, we'll still produce final plans that'll be identical to what you've approved. But I'd say at first, the approval would be that we'd both work on the final plans together as a joint, sort of a joint venture.
Okay, so ultimately, this board then would consider your revised grading and drainage plan and a revised subdivision plan with an approval conditioned on seeing that revised subdivision plan,
Right.
which,
In the easements,
unless you've got something better, and I'm more than happy to hear it.
I think that allows the board to see the easements in place.
Any other questions? The applicant.
Public hearing time?
I just want to see if he's got something. You. was 7:45.
No? Oh, I think they're there.
Just to be clear, those would be conditions that would be reviewed by staff ultimately, or does that require a trip back to this board?
Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, all right, sorry.
If that's it, I'm going to open up the public hearing, which, see if we can get through this huge crowd here tonight. Public hearing is open. Anybody wish to speak to, for, or against this application, either present or on Zoom?
We lost our one attendee, so we have no one.
Nobody there? Nobody wants to raise their hand? Last call. Anybody wish to speak to, for, or against this application? And close public hearing.
All right, kick things off. Make a motion, we vote to grant amended subdivision approval of the following condition 2.1 as outlined in the staff memorandum.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
So we could go back to the way the prior conditions had, that just outlined that drainage easements shall be provided across the various lots. And maintenance agreements need to be, as part of that language and documented. Or we could go with what we were also discussing to have an additional, this is all part of an additional condition. We could have something else in which they have to do an amended subdivision approval and then come back to us with the easements as shown. So.
Yes, Greg, you.
It seems to me that one to go with the approved drainage easements suffices, in my feeling. But
The first option, so to
Yeah,
speak?
the first option,
I mean, I guess I'm comfortable with that just because, well, it is what we did approve before. However, that was for something different. This is a little different.
it was a different structure, but the same concept.
Yeah, the biggest difference is this is inside the conservation easement.
Yep.
Where everything before was outside.
Point by you. Yep.
But it's a conservation easement, which is, different than other items such as wetland buffers and that sort of thing. So,
We did not ask if this was allowed in the conservation easement.
It does. In the staff memo, I provided some excerpts from the easement that allows drainage structures. And
All right.
yeah, oh yeah, I do remember that. Yep. So, yes, it is.
Okay. Well, I don't want to complicate it. It seems like the drainage has been improved and simplified.
All right, well, I'll make a additional condition, and if someone wants to, I don't know if anybody seconded my motion, but, okay. So, drainage easements shall be provided across Lot 3 for Lot 2 and 1 let me start over. Drainage easements shall be provided across Lot 3 for Lot 2 and 1 drainage, and across Lot 2 for Lot 1 drainage. Maintenance responsibilities by the homeowners for the rain garden shall be rain garden and overflow control structures shall be included in the easement language and addressed through a maintenance agreement. That document shall be recorded as part of the conservation easement deed.
I'll second that.
I think it's pretty
Discussion?
clear. I think that's pretty
That's
clear,
good.
particularly with the last part.
That probably will work. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, Corey.
Good work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So the items that get cut off, there's not a lot to update. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
390.
4K.
I am very sorry. Excuse me. We have a request of Daniel Siglovsky and Sarah Cook as owners of property at 390 FW Hartford Drive, requesting a wetland conditional use permit from section 101017 for removal of an existing 16 by 24-foot rear deck within the 100-foot wetlands buffer, and replacement of the deck with a 14 by 16-foot permeable paver patio. This project will include enhanced stormwater management, including gravel infiltration area, installation of rain garden, native plantings, and the installation of a permeable patio in place of the existing deck. This property is on Assessors Map 249, Lot 25, and in single residence SRB district. Who is here to present this application?
Hi, I'm Sarah Cook. So as you explained, we're looking to remove the existing deck, which is in rough shape. Part of it is held up by a car jack. And so there is some wood damage on the house. It's structurally concerning, so we're trying to address that as soon as possible. And we're going to replace it with a patio because we feel like that's kind of a better fit for the wooded area. I did include adding a rain garden, so where the sub pump comes out, and we're going to add gutters as well. But there's some additional rot on the trim that needs to be adjusted before we can add the gutters. But that's also going to feed into the rain garden, which is kind of over here on that right-hand side. And then we're expanding the garden that's already there a bit. So, and there are a lot of native plants already. The previous owners had a lot of great ferns, so we're just going to extend that.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I appreciate the drawing.
Thanks.
No questions? I'll open the public hearing. Public hearing's open. Anybody who wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? Still nobody on Zoom. And close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we vote to find that conditional use permit application meets the criteria set forth in section 10.1017.60 and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll make a motion, we vote to grant the wetland conditional use permit with the following conditions, 2.1 as outlined in the staff memorandum.
Second?
Any discussion?
I think the homeowner has actually done a great job based on the one photo in the packet of what the backyard already looks like. It is, it seems like there's a lot of native plantings already back there, and so not seeing grass I think is great for this particular location, and I think what they have proposed is fantastic. And it's also a safety issue. So.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Great, thanks.
You can put that car jack back in your trunk.
Oh, that's, you're joking. You got a free car jack at the house.
It came with it.
Okay, now to the items that got cut off. The only update I have, which ties into the last one, master plan, we have had our first subcommittee meeting of the master plan group. We're going to probably have another one next week. Just organizational, we're working on the RFP, RFQ, thought being possibly to have a select, did we miss something?
I don't know if we did Graceland last week or we still need to do it.
We did it.
If that's right. Okay.
Remember, I squeezed it in at the very end of the meeting.
Apologies for the interruption.
So we should have a draft for the board to look at soon on scope of work, and we can talk about whether it goes to a select group of consultants or to the wide open world of consultancy. I have yet to hear back from the superintendent. He's a very busy guy, so I did talk to an organization called New Hampshire Civics. They're based in Concord. They deal with engaging students in civic actions. They were super excited about the idea and offered to help once the high school, if the high school is interested as well. So that could be fun, could be interesting. And they said that also it's a good way to get parents engaged if their students are engaged, because some people said, well, students aren't voters, but they are going to be future voters, hopefully, and getting the parents engaged would be a good thing, getting more people involved. Rules and procedures, there's nothing updated since last week, except a couple of things. A question was raised as to whether or not alternates can participate in, non-sitting alternates can participate in discussion after there's a motion and a second, and that's actually, there's a statute on it, and if it's in the rules, they can, and if it's in the rules saying they can't, they can't. So the draft you will see at the next meeting, I hope, will address that. I'm going to propose that they be allowed to. And if the board doesn't want it,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how we've been operating, right?
right.
Okay. Keep it the
That's why I
same.
thought I'd do that.
Thank you.
Historically, it was the other way around. So it, over time, it's kind of gone back and forth.
Okay, well, it's up to the board. So, actually, if you guys feel one way or the other about it now, you can tell me. I'll just throw it in the draft.
I think the intent is just for alternates to vote. I mean, in place of. But
But the way I
But
see
this
it,
is-
the pros are that it helps keep the alternates engaged and
Exactly.
gets them to attend the meetings. The
Participate.
negatives are they're not voting, and they can have an influence on the vote. That's the,
Yeah,
Yes, Joe.
I when I was the chairman of HTC, I thought it was a terrible rule that I had to make sure that the alternate was silent after a motion was made, because we would have discussions, and it was just an awful thing to have to tell someone you can't talk. You know, they sit here all night, and, you know, after a motion's made, to say to an alternate you can't speak is, so I'm happy to have it clarified and brought up for discussion on this board, yeah.
agreed.
okay.
Support it.
A quick question on the timeline. Do you think we'll get the rules for the next month's meeting?
As I mentioned, we were all tired, so you probably don't remember, but, or actually, you weren't here, so that's why you don't remember.
Sorry.
That's why you don't. There was some confusion between the city attorney and me. She thought I was taking notes, I thought she was taking notes, and neither one of us were taking notes. So the tape still exists. It was a short discussion, and that's why they haven't been done, but it'll be done for the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's all I have on those issues. If anybody has anything else, quickly. Yes, Jim?
Yeah, this is just a quick kind of personal request as we move into November and December. I recall the last two meetings in December, the 21 and December 22, have been packed, really huge agendas. And that's a very busy time of year for everyone. And the CIP is in the December planning board meeting. So I was just hoping whoever prepares the agenda can maybe front load November or January and kind of give us a little break in December.
So this week was the deadline, and we only received 2 applications for November.
Wow.
And then we have one item of old business. So,
You don't have, what you're saying is you don't have much leeway to do that? Is that what you're saying?
Nor do we have much content either, it sounds like.
Well, the leeway we have, and this is something we talked about at our workshop meeting, and this is what Peter and I did before last week. He and I sat down and looked at the agenda and said, this is a monster agenda, and so we split it. And I will definitely suggest that if we end up with a big one in December.
Okay, great.
So, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.